The sky tore like paper. It did not make a big sound at first. It made a wrong sound, like air forgot how to be air. The masked man felt it before he saw it. His skin tightened. The hairs on his arms lifted under hard armor. His eyes snapped up. A thin line of bright nothing hung above the rooftops. It bent light around it like a bad lens. Then it widened. The world on the other side wasn't Gotham. It was not anywhere he knew. He moved on instinct, always forward, always away from crowds. But the rip pulled. His boots left the roof. His grapnel line snapped tight, then failed as if the building itself had vanished. For a single breath, he was weightless. Then gravity returned with a cruel joke. He fell. The first thing he smelled in the new world was hot street food and car exhaust. The second thing he heard was cheering. He hit a metal frame above a wide street. The impact rang through his bones. He rolled, caught a beam, and swung hard to stop his fall. Below him, a crowd packed the street like it was a holiday. Banners hung from poles and buildings. Huge screens showed a smiling hero in a cape. The words on the screens were bright and simple. A vote logo sat in the corner like a stamp on reality. The masked man's eyes moved fast. He took in the weight of the frame he had struck. He saw bolts that were too small. He saw a support cable frayed near a clamp. He saw the frame's load was not balanced. It was going to fail. Not in minutes, in seconds. He did not think about where he was. He did not think about how he got there. He thought about the people under the metal. He pulled himself up. His hands moved like tools. He clipped a line around one beam. He fired a second grapnel into the side of a building. The hook bit deep. He tested the hold with a sharp tug. Good concrete. Real steel. Then the frame shifted again. The frayed cable snapped. Metal screamed. The huge structure started to tilt toward the crowd. The masked man threw his weight the other way and yanked on his lines. He did not stop the fall. He redirected it. The frame swung like a giant door, missing the center of the crowd by a few yards. It crashed into a row of parked trucks instead. Glass burst. People screamed. The cheering turned into panic. He dropped down onto the frame as it buckled. His boots hit hard. He ran along the metal like it was a bridge. A child had frozen near the front barricade. A parent reached for her, but got shoved back by the wave of bodies. The masked man jumped. He landed in the street. He scooped the child up with one arm and turned his body sideways to protect her from the pushing crowd. He took 3 steps and planted his feet. His voice came out low and firm, not loud, but sharp enough to cut through noise. Move back. Keep your hands up. Breathe. The parent saw him and stumbled forward. The masked man placed the child into the parent's arms and gave a quick nod. He turned before the thanks could start. More metal was falling now. Smaller pieces. Signs. Lights. Loose parts. He ran toward the danger instead of away from it. Someone with a vote security badge raised a rifle. Hands where I can! The masked man closed the distance. A quick kick to the rifle, a twist. The weapon clattered onto the street. 2 more guards rushed him. He did not punch like a brawler. He hit nerves, joints, and balance points. He dropped one man with a knee to the stomach. He used the other man's forward motion to flip him over his hip. Both guards stayed alive. Neither guard stood back up. He looked at their weapons and then at the crowd. Too many guns. Too many civilians. This was not law. This was control. On the screen above, the smiling hero had stopped smiling. The camera angle had changed. Now the hero looked annoyed, like the crowd had ruined his day. The masked man saw the hero's eyes. Not fear, not worry. Ownership. A new sound cut through the chaos. A sharp wind. A fast footstep that did not match a normal body. Something blurred across the street and stopped 10 feet away. A man in a sleek suit, red and blue, stood with his chest rising too fast. His smile was practiced. "Ayo!" the man called, loud enough for nearby cameras to catch it. "Everybody chill. Vaught's got this." His eyes flicked over the broken frame, the guards on the ground, and the masked man. "You," the speedster said, pointing. "Mask. You're not on the schedule." The masked man did not answer. He shifted his weight slightly. His left hand moved closer to a pouch on his belt. The speedster took one step forward, then two. He moved like he wanted to circle, like a shark that thought it owned the water. "You gonna tell me your name?" the speedster asked. "Or should I call you Edgy?" The masked man's gaze went to the speedster's chest. He saw a logo, a brand, a person turned into a product. He also saw something else, a twitch, a subtle press of fingers against the sternum, like someone easing pain. The speedster's smile stayed, but his breathing was wrong. Not a healthy runner, a damaged engine. The masked man raised his voice just enough for the closest people to hear. "Get civilians out," he said to the guards. "Now." A guard shouted back, "Who the hell are you?" The speedster laughed, but it sounded thin. "Yeah, who are you, mate?" he said. "You some kind of soup? You got a gimmick? Bats? Rats? You bite people?" The masked man flicked a small object onto the street between them. Smoke bloomed. The speedster flinched, not from fear, but from surprise. The masked man moved through the smoke like he had built it himself. He used a truck's open door as cover. He climbed a stack of crates. He shot a line into an overhead sign and swung across the street. The speedster lunged after him, fast, but not clean. His foot slipped slightly on glass. He cursed under his breath and pressed his chest again. The masked man landed on a low rooftop, rolled, and kept moving. Behind him, cameras turned to catch the chase. The speedster stood in the street, staring up into the smoke and shadows, like he hated the fact that his prey had chosen the dark. A woman in a business suit stepped out from behind a security line. She held a phone to her ear. Her face was calm. "Sir," she said quietly, eyes never leaving the rooftop. "We have an unknown. He's not cooperating." She listened, then nodded once. "Yes, sir," she said. "I'll update him." High above the city, in a tower of glass, a man watched the footage on a wide screen. His cape did not move. There was no wind up here. Homelander leaned forward slightly. His eyes tracked the masked figure's jump, his swing, his clean escape. He did not smile. He did not frown. He simply stared the way a person stares when something has taken what they believe belongs to them. "Who is that?" he asked softly. No one answered fast enough. Homelander's eyes glowed for a brief moment, not as a threat, as a reflex. "Find him," he said. And this time, it was not a request. Huey Campbell watched the same clip on a smaller screen in a much smaller room. The room smelled like old takeout and cheap cleaning spray. A fan rattled in the window like it wanted to escape. On the wall, there was a board full of faces and strings and notes. Vought. The 7. Missing people. Places that burned and got called accidents. Billy Butcher stood with his arms crossed, chewing on a toothpick like it was the only thing keeping him from biting someone. Mother's Milk sat on a chair that looked like it had survived a war. His eyes were tired, but sharp. Frenchie leaned in too close to the screen, like he could smell the pixels. Kimiko sat on the floor with her knees up, quiet as always. Starlight stood near the doorway, half in shadow, half in the light. She looked like she wanted to run toward the problem, and also like she wanted to warn them all not to. The clip replayed. Metal falling, crowd screaming, guards getting dropped. Smoke. Shadow. Escape. Huey swallowed. "He saved people," Huey said. Butcher snorted. "He made a mess on live camera," he said. "That's what he did." He didn't kill the guards, pointed out. Look at the way he hits. It's controlled. Frenchie's eyes gleamed. The gadgets, he murmured. The smoke is not Vought. Vought like sparkles. This is practical. Starlight's voice was quiet. He looked at the crowd first, she said. He didn't look for applause. Butcher jabbed a finger at the screen when it paused on the masked man's face. He's wearing a bloody bat, Butcher said. That's a costume. Costumes mean something. Huey tried to keep his voice steady. Or it means he doesn't want to be seen. Butcher's mouth curled. No one does that unless they're hiding something. Or unless they're trying to scare people. Leaned forward. Whatever he is, he said. Vought's already calling him a threat. That means one thing. Huey looked up. They want to control him? Nodded once. Or kill him. Starlight stared at the paused image. If he's real, she said, they'll break him. Butcher clicked his tongue. Or we use him first. Huey felt cold move through his stomach. The idea of using anyone felt wrong. But then, he remembered Robin, the flash of a body, the way life could end because a soup didn't care. He watched the masked man pull the child away from the falling metal. Huey did not know this stranger, but the stranger had done something in the clip that the Seven almost never did. He had acted like people mattered. That night, the masked man moved through the city like he had lived there for years. He did not have a cave. He did not have a tower. He did not have a team waiting with a headset and perfect drones. He had his body, his gear, his mind, and he had one clear rule. Find the center of the rot. He started at the place where the rot showed itself. Money, permits, contracts, and signatures. He broke into a city records building through a side door that looked weak because it was weak. He slid a thin tool into the lock. The tumblers gave up with a soft click. Inside, the hallway lights hummed. The security cameras had blind spots. Most buildings did. Most people did not build for someone like him. He moved past the cameras anyway. He left nothing behind but air. In the basement archive, he found rows of file boxes and old computer terminals. He turned on a screen. It took too long to boot. The system was slow. Cheap. Underfunded. He frowned behind the mask. A city like this had money. So why did the public parts look starved? He pulled up permits tied to the street event. He compared the names of contractors. 3 names repeated. One of them was linked to a bigger company. He found the bigger company's parent. Then he saw the logo again. Vought. His jaw tightened. Of course, he read more. The event's metal frame had been rushed. The safety checks were expedited. The signature that approved it was from a person who had no right to approve anything. He saved the files. He printed 1 page and held it under a small light. He did not like how the ink looked. It looked like lies made solid. He slipped the page into a pouch. Then he heard a faint sound behind him. Not a footstep. A breath. He turned fast. A man stood in the shadow of the aisle between boxes. Tall, broad, a beard, a coat that looked too expensive to be old. Billy Butcher did not raise a gun. Not yet. He just smiled like he had walked into a room he owned. "Evening," Butcher said. "Nice place. Bit dusty." The masked man did not speak. Butcher held up both hands like he was trying to be friendly. It did not match his eyes. "Relax," Butcher said. "I'm not Vought. If I was Vought, you'd already be on fire." The masked man's gaze flicked toward Butcher's belt. There was a weapon. There were others nearby, hidden. The masked man's voice came out low. "You followed me." Butcher's grin widened. "Yeah, you're hard to follow," he said. "But not impossible." The masked man stepped to the side so a shelf stood between them. Cover. Angle. Butcher laughed softly. "There it is," he said. "That thing you do. Like you're always building a little maze. The masked man did not deny it. Butcher leaned in. We have a common enemy, he said. You saw the logo. You did the math. Good for you. He pointed toward the screen. You're digging into Vought's paperwork. That's cute. But paperwork doesn't bleed. The masked man's eyes narrowed. It does when you use it right. Butcher blinked once, then his smile returned. Okay, he said. Maybe you're not an idiot. A new voice cut in from the doorway. Billy, Starlight said. Don't. She stood with her hands down, palms open. She did not look like she wanted a fight. She looked like she wanted to stop one. The masked man's head turned slightly. He had seen her face on screens. The good one. The one who still tried. Starlight stepped closer, slow. I saw what you did, she said. You saved that kid. The masked man did not answer. But the silence was different now. Less cold, more focused. Butcher rolled his eyes. Here we go, he muttered. Sunshine and rainbows. Starlight ignored him. Vought is going to say you're a terrorist, she said. They'll tell people you attacked that event on purpose. The masked man's voice was flat. I didn't. I know, Starlight said. Butcher waved a hand. I don't care what they say, he said. I care what we can do. He looked at the masked man like a person looks at a crowbar. Help us, Butcher said. We'll point you at the worst of them. You do your spooky bat thing. Boom. Problem solved. The masked man's shoulders tightened. He had heard that tone before, a tone that meant you were a tool. He stepped forward, just one step, and the air changed. No, he said. Butcher's smile faded. No? No deals, the masked man said. No ownership. Butcher's eyes hardened. You think you can walk into this world and play hero? He asked. This isn't your city, mate. Starlight's voice sharpened. Billy. The masked man looked at Starlight. Who are you? He asked. Starlight hesitated. Annie, she said. People call me Starlight. He did not offer his name. Butcher snorted. He's shy, he said. Probably got a face for radio. The masked man's gaze returned to Butcher. You're not law enforcement, he said. You're not Vought. So what are you? Butcher tilted his head. We're the ones who do what needs doing, he said. The masked man's reply came fast. That line is how monsters are born. Butcher's jaw clenched. You got a rule, he said. Let me guess. No killing. The masked man did not blink. Correct. Butcher spread his arms. Then you're in the wrong bloody universe, he said. Starlight stepped between them. He doesn't have to be, she said. That's the point. The masked man looked past them to the hallway. He listened. He heard more breathing. He heard a quiet shift of weight. He knew they were not alone. He let one hand rest near his belt again, not as a threat, but as a reminder. I'm not here for you, he said to Butcher. I'm here for them. He tapped the printed page in his pouch. Vought cut corners, he said. That frame was meant to fail. Not because they're stupid, because they don't care. Starlight's face tightened. They'd risk people just for a show? Butcher laughed, but there was no humor in it. Welcome to the party, he said. They did not take him to a watchtower. They took him to a basement safe house that smelled like old sweat and old fear. The masked man stood in the center of the room, while the boys watched him like a strange animal that might bite. Huey tried not to stare. He failed. Up close, the stranger's armor looked handmade. Not messy, not cheap, but not polished like Vought's gear. It looked like something built by someone who cared about function more than style. Frenchie tried to peek at a seam. The masked man shifted just enough to block him without touching him. Frenchie raised his hands. I only admire, he said. This is Very clever. Kept his distance. His voice was calm. We want to know if you're on Compound V, he said. The masked man turned his head slowly. I'm not. Butcher scoffed. That's what they all say. Huey found his voice. You don't act like them, he said. Butcher shot him a look. Huey pushed on anyway. You saved that kid, he said. You could have run. The masked man's gaze settled on Huey. It was not warm, but it wasn't cruel either. Running doesn't fix anything, he said. Starlight leaned against the wall with her arms crossed. She looked tired. If you're not on V, she said, then how are you doing this? The masked man paused. For a second, Huey thought he would leave, but then he spoke in short beats, like he was listing facts from a file. Training, he said. Planning. Tools. Fear. Butcher smirked. Fear, he repeated. Now you're speaking my language. The masked man's head snapped toward him. Not that kind, he said. Watched the stranger's hands. You said tools, said. You build this stuff? Yes, the masked man replied. Frenchie's eyes lit up. Ah, a maker. The masked man glanced around the room. He looked at the cracked paint and the bad wiring and the cheap locks. He said something that sounded like a complaint, even through the mask. This place needs reinforcement, he said. That beam is overloaded. If you run in a hurry, the stairs will shake. Someone will fall. Butcher stared. Did you just insult my safe house? Huey blinked. He's doing building notes. Frenchie laughed. He cannot help himself. Kimiko's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Butcher stepped forward. All right, Bat, he began, then stopped, like he didn't want to give the stranger the satisfaction of a nickname. He tried again. All right, mate. You want Vought. We want Vought. Let's not make this a therapy session. The masked man's voice stayed flat. I'm not joining your crusade. Butcher's eyes narrowed. What, you just gonna do it alone? The masked man looked at the board on the wall. Faces, strings, notes. He took a slow breath. Then he did something no one expected. He walked to the board and studied it like it was a broken machine. He pointed at a photo. That one, he said. Followed his finger. That's a Vought contractor, said. We've been trying to tie him to... You missed the permits, the masked man said. He signs off on structures tied to public events. He's a choke point. Butcher's mouth opened, then closed. Huey felt a strange feeling rise in his chest. Hope. It was small. It was scary. But it was there. Starlight's voice softened. You're a detective, she said. The masked man did not confirm it. He just said, I follow evidence. Butcher leaned in, voice low. And what do you do when evidence isn't enough? He asked. The masked man's reply was immediate. I get more. Across the city, in a clean office that smelled like expensive wood, Stan Edgar watched the clip again. Not the crowd. Not the falling metal. Not the screaming. He watched the masked man's timing. He watched the way he moved like he had already decided where every person in the street would go. He watched the way the stranger used smoke, not as drama, but as cover. Edgar's face did not change. A woman stood beside him with a tablet. We can label him a terrorist, she said. We can link him to... No, Edgar said. She paused. No, sir? Edgar's eyes stayed on the screen. He's not looking for attention, he said. He's looking for leverage. The woman swallowed. Then what do we do? Edgar leaned back slightly. We learn, he said. We contain. He picked up his phone. And we tell Homelander only what he needs to hear. The woman hesitated. Because he'll react. Edgar's voice stayed calm. Because he always does. The next day, Vought made the first move. It did not send a squad. Not yet. It sent a story. Every screen in the city showed the same headline. Unknown masked super-terrorist attacks Vought event. Huey stared at it in a corner store window and felt his stomach twist. A woman beside him shook her head. Another one, she said. They're all the same. Huey wanted to say, no, he's not. But Huey had learned something in this world. If you argued with a lie that loud, you got swallowed by it. He hurried back to the safe house. Inside, the masked man was already watching. He did not look angry. He looked like this confirmed something he already knew. Butcher clapped his hands once. All right, he said. Now we're cooking. Starlight shot him a look. Stop, she said. This isn't a game. Butcher pointed at the screen. They painted him as a terrorist, he said. Means they're scared. Means he's useful. The masked man turned away from the screen. This makes me a target, he said. Nodded. And it makes anyone near you a target. Huey swallowed. So what do we do? The masked man walked to the board and drew a simple circle around a facility name Frenchie had written in red marker. A wellness center, a rehabilitation unit, a clean label. Vaught's labels were always clean. They keep records there, the masked man said. Real records, not the public ones. Frenchie frowned. How do you know? The masked man tapped a permit number. Because the building is reinforced wrong, he said. It's built like it expects heavy containment. That's not therapy. Huey blinked again. Building notes. Saving lives. This was his hobby. Or maybe it was his curse. Butcher's eyes gleamed. We hit it, he said. Starlight's jaw tightened. People could be inside, she said. Innocent people. The masked man's voice was firm. Then we go quiet, he said. No bombs, no loud entry. Butcher rolled his shoulders like he hated the idea. Fine, he said. We go quiet. Looked at Butcher like he didn't believe him. Huey looked at the masked man. What do we call you? He asked. The masked man paused. For a breath, Huey thought he might finally say it. Instead, he said, Don't. Huey's mouth went dry. Don't call you anything? Names get used, the masked man said. I don't give people weapons. Butcher muttered, Oh, for... Starlight cut him off with a sharp look. The masked man turned back to the board. We go tonight, he said. That night, rain fell like it wanted to wash the city clean, and failed. The masked man moved first. He didn't run down the street. He didn't approach the front gate. He didn't challenge guards like it was a contest. He found the weak points, a service tunnel, a maintenance hatch, a camera that had been installed for show, not function. Frenchie followed, quiet for once. Moved like a shadow with weight, steady, ready. Kimiko moved like she had no bones, only intent. Huey brought up the rear, trying not to breathe too loud. Starlight was not with them. She couldn't be. Not openly. But she had sent a message through a burner phone, a simple map, a simple warning. Homelander is in a mood. The masked man stored that information like a sharp object. He opened the hatch. Cold air rolled out. The tunnel smelled like bleach and metal. He dropped down, landed soft, and looked around. Cameras, Huey whispered. The masked man pointed. 2 small lenses in corners. He tossed a tiny disc. It stuck to the wall. The camera blinked once and went dark. Frenchie stared. You have so many little toys, he whispered like it was a prayer. The masked man did not answer. They moved. 2 guards stood at a door ahead talking. Butcher would have shot them. Huey could feel it, even though Butcher wasn't here. The masked man didn't shoot. He threw a small pellet near their feet. A soft pop, a burst of bright light. The guards flinched, eyes squeezing shut. Kimiko was already on them. She hit one in the throat with the side of her hand, not to crush, but to drop him. She swept the other's legs out and pinned his arms. Zip-tied both men fast. Huey stared. Kimiko looked up at him and tapped her own chest twice, like she was saying, "We do this clean." The masked man opened the door. Inside, the hallway lights were too bright, too white, like a hospital that didn't want you to sleep. The walls were clean, too clean. That kind of clean always hid something. They passed rooms with doors and small windows. Some rooms were empty. Some were not. Huey saw a man in scrubs sitting on the floor, rocking, whispering to himself. Huey saw a woman with bruises on her arms, staring at the wall like she had been staring for days. Huey's throat tightened. "This is rehab?" he whispered. Frenchie's voice was low. "No," he said. "This is storage." The masked man's fists tightened. "We don't stop," he said. "We come back for them when we can move them." Huey hated that answer. But Huey also knew the truth. If they got caught now, everyone here would suffer worse. They moved deeper. At the end of a corridor, a secure door waited. Keypad, card reader, heavy hinges. The masked man crouched and listened. No footsteps beyond. He pulled a tool from his belt and opened a small panel. Wires ran like veins. Frenchie leaned in. "You are not afraid of electricity," Frenchie whispered. The masked man's voice was dry. "I respect it." He worked fast, not rushed, efficient. The lock clicked. The door opened. Inside was a room full of server racks and hard drives. Screens glowed with charts and names and codes. Vought loved data, because data could be edited. The masked man stepped in like this was holy ground, not because he respected Vought, because evidence mattered. Started copying files to a drive. Frenchie checked for alarms. Huey stood guard, heart pounding. Kimiko watched the hallway like it owed her money. Then the lights flickered. Not like a power glitch, like the building itself had flinched. A low hum rolled through the walls. The masked man's head snapped up. He felt it through his boots. Vibration. Something heavy landing on the roof. Huey's stomach dropped. A voice echoed through the facility's speakers. Smooth. Bright. Friendly in the way a knife could be friendly. "Hello," the voice said. "We have an intruder, and I just love meeting new people." Huey's blood turned to ice. Homelander. Hissed. "He's here?" Frenchie whispered. "Oh no, no, no." Kimiko's hands curled into fists. The masked man didn't panic. He looked at the ceiling like he could see through it. Then he spoke in the same flat tone. "Keep copying," he said. 2 minutes. Stared. 2 minutes? The masked man's voice stayed firm. 2 minutes, he repeated. Huey almost laughed from fear. 2 minutes was forever. 2 minutes was nothing. Outside the door, footsteps approached. Not fast, not searching, confident. A shadow crossed the hallway. Then another. A train's voice came from outside, annoyed. "Where is he? I want a rematch." A deeper, quieter presence stood beside him. Black Noir did not speak, but the silence around him felt like a threat. Then the air changed again. Warmth. Pressure. The facility felt smaller, like the walls had moved in. Homelander's voice came closer, cheerful as poison. "And there you are," he said. The door to the server room did not explode. It simply opened, like the building had decided it didn't have the right to keep him out. Homelander stepped in with a smile that did not reach his eyes. A train leaned in behind him, breathing too hard for a man who was supposed to be fast. Black Noir stood still, like a statue that could kill. Homelander's eyes moved over Frenchie, Kimiko, Huey. Then they landed on the masked man. "Well," Homelander said, "you're real." The masked man stepped forward slightly. He put himself between Homelander and the others. Huey felt a strange relief and a bigger fear. Relief because the stranger was doing what a hero did. Fear because heroes got crushed in this world. Homelander tilted his head. "You didn't ask for permission," he said. "You didn't call vote. You didn't smile for the cameras." He leaned closer. "And you really, really don't look scared." The masked man's voice was low. "You're in the way." A-Train laughed. "Oh, he's got jokes." Homelander raised one hand, not in anger, but like he was about to touch a toy. "Mask," Homelander said. "Tell me who you are." The masked man did not answer. Homelander's smile thinned. "Okay," he said. "Then I'll guess." He took a step forward. The masked man threw a flash device at Homelander's face. It burst like a tiny sun. For a normal person, it would have been too bright to look at. For Homelander, it was still bright. His eyes squeezed shut for a fraction of a second. Just a fraction. But the masked man used fractions the way others used miracles. He moved. He shoved a rolling server cart into A-Train's legs. A-Train stumbled and cursed, grabbing his chest. Kimiko lunged at Black Noir, not to win, but to slow. MM grabbed Huey by the collar and pulled him back. Frenchie yanked the drive from the server and stuffed it into a bag. Homelander opened his eyes again. His face changed. The friendly look vanished. In its place was something raw. Offended. "You just tried to blind me," Homelander said, voice quiet. The masked man didn't run yet. He stayed. He planted his feet. "This facility is holding people," he said, without consent. Homelander laughed once, sharp. "And?" The masked man's voice did not rise. "And that makes you a criminal." Huey's heart slammed in his chest. Nobody called Homelander a criminal to his face. Homelander leaned forward until his smile was inches from the mask. "You're not from here," Homelander said softly. "I can tell." His eyes flicked down to the stranger's armor. "Cute suit," he said. "Homemade?" The masked man did not react. Homelander's eyes shifted toward Huey. Huey froze. Homelander's smile widened again. "Aw," he said. "Look at the little ones you brought." The masked man moved a half step to block Homelander's line of sight. That tiny move saved Huey's life, because Homelander's eyes flashed red. A thin line of heat cut across the room, not aimed to kill, but to warn. It sliced a server rack in half like it was paper. Metal sagged. Sparks burst. Smoke rose. Alarm started screaming. Homelander's voice stayed calm. "You have my attention now," he said. The masked man snapped a device onto the floor. A dense smoke cloud erupted, thicker than before. Homelander could see through smoke if he tried hard enough. But smoke did something else too. It forced choices. In the fog, the masked man's voice came once, steady and sharp. "Exit. Now." MM moved first, dragging Huey. Frenchie ran, clutching the bag like it was a newborn. Kimiko hauled herself away from Black Noir, bleeding from a cut on her arm but still moving. The masked man stayed in the smoke. Homelander's eyes glowed brighter, burning through the haze. He caught a glimpse of the stranger's silhouette. He flew forward like a bullet. The impact smashed into a wall. Concrete cracked. Homelander grabbed the stranger by the chest plate and slammed him again. Huey heard it even from the hallway. A sound like a car crash. Huey's legs almost stopped. MM shoved him. "Don't look back," MM hissed. "Move!" Huey moved. Behind them, Homelander spoke in the smoke, voice low and pleased. "You're tough," he said, "for a guy without powers." The masked man's breath came hard. He did not beg. He did not try to talk Homelander into being good. He did the only thing that made sense. He planned. He had already placed charges on a support point in the ceiling, not enough to bring the building down, enough to drop a section of heavy ductwork between them. He triggered it. Metal crashed down. Homelander shoved it aside with one arm, furious. The masked man was already gone, moving through a service passage he had spotted earlier, because the concrete seams were wrong, because he always noticed the seams. He found the boys in the tunnel. Frenchie's hands shook as he checked the drive. "We have something," he whispered. "We have real files." Huey looked back into the dark. The masked man emerged, limping slightly. His armor was cracked at the chest. His cape hung torn on one side. He was still standing. Behind him, the facility shook as Homelander tore through doors like they were curtains. The masked man looked at Huey once, just once. Huey saw something in that glance. Not fear, not pride. A simple message. Keep moving. They ran. They burst out into rain and night. A-Train's angry shout echoed from behind. Black Noir's silent pursuit felt like a shadow on their heels. Then Homelander rose above the building, floating in the storm like a king above a city that couldn't stop him. His eyes burned red, cutting through the rain. He looked down at the street. He looked down at the tunnel exit. He did not see them. Not yet. But he knew. He knew this masked stranger had touched something of his and survived. Homelander's smile returned, slow and cruel. "This is gonna be fun," he whispered to himself. And in a hidden basement across the city, the masked man sat for a moment with his back to a wall, breathing hard, while Frenchie and MM argued over the files, and Huey tried to stop his hands from shaking. The masked man looked at the cracked concrete above him and spoke like it was the most normal thing in the world. "This ceiling won't hold if he finds us," he said. Butcher, watching through a grainy live feed on a burner phone somewhere else, grinned like a wolf. "Good," Butcher murmured. "Now we've got his attention." The storm outside kept falling, and the city, for the first time in a long time, had a new kind of fear. Not fear of a god. Fear of a man who refused to kneel. The safe house felt smaller after the chase, not because the room had changed, because everyone inside it had. Rain tapped the window like a steady warning. The fan still rattled. The board on the wall still held faces and strings, but now there was a new string tied to a name nobody could print on paper. Huey sat on a milk crate, with his hands locked together so tight his fingers hurt. He kept seeing the red line from Homelander's eyes cutting through the server rack. He kept hearing the sound of armor hitting concrete. Across from him, the masked man sat with his back against a wall. His cape was torn. The chest plate had a long crack that looked like it had been cut with a blade. He breathed slow, controlled, like he was refusing to give pain the last word. Frenchie knelt by a folding table. The drive sat in front of him like a live animal. He had wires, tools, and a laptop open. His fingers moved fast, but his face was tense. MM paced once, then stopped. He pointed at the ceiling. "That joist is bowed," he said, half to himself. The masked man lifted his head. "Yes," he said. Huey blinked. "You're still doing building notes," he muttered. The masked man looked up again, eyes tracking the crack line that ran from the corner to the light fixture. "This place wasn't meant to hold panic," he said. "If we run, someone trips. If someone fires, the drywall dust blinds you for a second. If he finds this place, the front wall won't buy time." Butcher's voice came from a speakerphone on the table. He wasn't here. He was somewhere else, watching through someone else's eyes. "Cheers," Butcher said. "We've got a bloody inspector." Starlight stood near the doorway, arms folded. Her face was pale, but her eyes were hard in the way they got when she decided she would not bend. "Did you really talk to him like that?" she asked the masked man. The masked man didn't need her to say Homelander's name. He nodded once. I told him he was a criminal, he said. Huey let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. That's insane, he said. It was true, the masked man replied. Butcher chuckled through the speaker. Oh, I like him, he said. He's got stones. Stopped pacing. That's not the issue, he said. The issue is now Homelander is hunting him like it's personal. Starlight's jaw clenched. It was already personal, she said. It's always personal with him. Frenchie finally got something on the laptop to open. A list. Names, dates, facility codes, shipment logs. He swallowed. Okay, he whispered. Okay. This is real. This is not PR. Huey leaned forward. What is it? Frenchie scrolled. This is who goes in, he said. This is who comes out. This is who never comes out. Kimiko stood behind him, her eyes fixed on a set of names that were marked with a simple word. Transferred. She tapped the screen once. Sharp. Yeah, said softly. Transferred means gone. Butcher's tone changed. Find the worst thing, he said. Find the thing that makes them scream. The masked man turned his head slightly, like he didn't like the way that sentence sounded. Frenchie kept scrolling. There are sublevels, he said. Not just rehab, something else. W folders. Internal only. Starlight leaned in. W? She asked. Frenchie clicked. A page loaded slow. At the top, a word sat there like a bruise. The woods. Huey frowned. That's real? He asked. I thought that was a rumor. Didn't answer right away. He looked at Starlight. Starlight's eyes dropped for a second. I heard whispers, she said. Not from the 7, from the staff. People who clean. People who fix lights. They said Vought had a place where they put problems. Huey felt cold. The masked man's voice came quiet. They hide what they can't sell, he said. Butcher's smile could be heard even through a bad speaker. Right, he said. So we burn it down. The masked man's head snapped toward the phone. No, he said. Butcher's laugh died. Excuse me? You don't burn it down with people inside, the masked man said. You extract. You expose. You stop the ones responsible. Butcher's voice got sharper. You're new here, mate. This world doesn't do extract. It does body bags. Starlight stepped forward. Billy, stop, she said. Butcher ignored her. You want to play hero? He asked. Fine, but don't get in my way when I do what works. The masked man didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Your way makes more Homelander, he said, just with a different face. Silence hit the room. Huey looked at Mem. Looked away, like he'd heard the same argument 100 times, and still didn't have a clean answer. Frenchie's fingers trembled as he clicked deeper into the folder. Then he found it. A page with red warning marks, a lab stamp, a word that made Huey's stomach flip. Viral. Huey frowned. Like, virus? Frenchie nodded slowly. Yes, he said. A sickness, but not for everyone. He highlighted a line with his mouse. It says, target, V positive. Starlight's throat tightened. Soups, she whispered. Went still. They made a virus. For soups, Butcher's voice dropped low. Now we're talking. The masked man's shoulders tightened. How many? He asked. Frenchie scrolled further. His face went pale. There are notes, he said. Tests. Plans for delivery. It says airflow simulation. It says field deployment model. Huey stared at the words and tried to make them smaller in his mind. He couldn't. That means, Huey started. Starlight finished for him. It means they could kill lots of soups at once, she said. But they could also kill anyone near them, MM added. You release something like that. You can't put it back in the bottle. Kimiko stared at the screen like she wanted to rip it out of the laptop. The masked man leaned in closer. His voice stayed flat, but something in it turned colder. This isn't control, he said. This is a massacre plan. Butcher didn't deny it. It's a solution, he said. Starlight snapped. It's genocide, Billy. Huey flinched at the word, but he understood what she meant. Kill a whole group. Wipe them out. Butcher's tone didn't soften. They started it, he said. They're monsters. The masked man straightened. Monsters don't justify monsters, he said. Butcher's voice turned hard. You think your little rule matters here? He asked. You think no killing works against a flying god who can cut you in half with his eyes? The masked man stared at the phone like he could see Butcher through it. I don't care if it's hard, he said. I care if it's right. Butcher's breath hissed through his teeth. Right, he said. So what's your plan then? The masked man looked at the board. He looked at the permits. He looked at the contractor names he had pulled the night before. Then he spoke like he was reading the next step off a blueprint. We find where this is built, he said. We cut it out. MM nodded once. Quiet, he said. Clean. Butcher scoffed. Slow, he said. The masked man's eyes moved to Huey. Huey felt like he was being weighed. You're scared, the masked man said. Huey swallowed. Yeah, he admitted. Good, the masked man said. Fear is data. Use it. Huey blinked. That was the strangest comfort he'd ever heard. Starlight watched the masked man like she was trying to memorize him before the world took him away. You can't stay here, she said quietly. Vought will be watching everyone connected to this. MM nodded. We move, he said. Tonight. The masked man looked up at the bowed ceiling again. Yes, he said. Tonight. The next morning, the city woke up to the lie. Every screen showed the same story, cut into neat pieces so it fit in a headline. Unknown. Masked super-terrorist attacks recovery center. Vought anchors smiled as they spoke, like tragedy was a product. They showed the falling metal at the public event again. They cut out the part where the child was saved. They looped the moment the guard hit the ground and froze it like a crime photo. They said the masked man attacked heroic first responders. They said Vought would protect the public. Then they brought Homelander on screen. He sat on a clean couch with a flag behind him. His hair was perfect. His smile was bright. He spoke in a warm voice like a teacher reading to kids. There are bad people out there, Homelander said, and sometimes they wear masks. He leaned forward, like he cared. But don't worry, he said. We're going to find him, and we're going to keep you safe. Behind the cameras, in the space where only staff stood, Homelander's smile dropped the moment the red recording light clicked off. He stood up so fast the couch squeaked. Ashley, sweating, rushed after him. That was great, she said. Great. Great. We're trending. Homelander turned his head slowly. Ashley stopped talking. A-Train stood nearby, arms crossed, trying to act casual. He wasn't. He kept rubbing his chest like a habit. Homelander stared at him. You let him go, Homelander said. A-Train swallowed. He used smoke, he said. I couldn't. Homelander stepped close. A-Train's breathing got faster. Homelander smiled again, but now it wasn't for cameras. It's funny, he said softly. You're the fast one. That's your whole thing. A-Train's eyes flicked away. He's tricky, he said. Homelander's voice stayed gentle. Tricky, he repeated. He leaned in until his mouth was right near A-Train's ear. If you fail me again, Homelander whispered, I'll make sure everyone knows you're slow. A-Train's face tightened with fear and anger mixed together. Homelander pulled back and looked over at Black Noir. Noir stood still. Quiet. Ready. Homelander didn't need to threaten him. He just said, "Find the mask." Noir gave a small nod. Homelander's eyes drifted toward the window, toward the city below. He didn't want to arrest the masked man. He wanted to break him. He wanted the world to watch. In a different tower, with a different kind of power, Stan Edgar watched the same interview. He didn't care about the smile. He didn't care about the flag. He cared about the timing. He paused the video on a single frame. The moment Homelander's eyes shifted, the moment the mask had become personal. Edgar's assistant stood beside him, tablet in hand. "We can increase the bounty," she said. "We can push law enforcement." "No," Edgar said. She paused. "No, sir?" Edgar's voice stayed calm. "Bounties create noise," he said. "Noise creates chaos. Chaos makes Homelander expressive." The assistant swallowed. "Then what's the plan?" Edgar leaned back. "Containment," he said. "Information control. And if we can't contain him..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. His assistant looked down at her tablet and scrolled. "There's no compound Vi signature," she said. "Not in the footage we have. No glow. No tells." Edgar's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Then he's not ours," he said. "Which means he's either a unique asset or a unique threat." The assistant hesitated. "Should we tell Homelander?" Edgar's gaze stayed on the screen. "We tell Homelander what keeps him pointed in the right direction," he said. "Nothing more." He set his phone down and tapped a single contact. "Move Wood Security into a higher posture," he said when the line connected. "And isolate the viral work. No field team touches it without my approval." A pause. "Yes," Edgar said, "even if he asks." Edgar ended the call and looked out at the city. "There are two wars," he said quietly, mostly to himself. "The one on the street, and the one in the mind." He picked up the remote again and paused the image on the mask. "You're not trying to be famous," he said. "So what are you building?" Victoria Newman watched the news clip in her car as it rolled through a poor neighborhood that Vought never showed on camera. Her driver kept his eyes forward. Her aide, sitting across from her, looked nervous. "It's all over the internet," the aide said. "Some people think he's a new soup." Newman's face stayed calm. "Some people think lots of things," she said. She watched the frozen frame of the mask. "A man like that," she said, "doesn't appear without a reason." The aide swallowed. "Do we condemn him?" Newman tilted her head. "We condemn violence," she said. "We demand safety. We demand accountability." The aide nodded quickly. "And privately?" Newman's eyes stayed on the mask. "Privately, we learn what he wants," she said. "And we decide if he can be useful." The aide hesitated. "What if he can't?" Newman smiled lightly. "Then we make sure the public sees him as a threat," she said. "It's not complicated." She tapped her phone and sent a message to a contact that didn't have a name saved. "Set up a community safety hearing. Invite Vought. Invite survivors. Quietly invite the mask." Newman leaned back. If the mask showed up, she could measure him. If he didn't, she could still use the story. Either way, she would win something. The boys moved safe houses that night. It wasn't dramatic. It was ugly and fast. Duffel bags, old cars, back alleys, no lights. Huey carried a box of canned food and cheap tools. He kept expecting a laser line to cut through the darkness at any moment. The masked man walked last. He stopped twice to check street corners that didn't need checking. He listened to the city like it was breathing, and he could hear what it lied about. At the new place, the first thing he did wasn't sleep. He walked the rooms. He tapped walls. He looked at the stairs. Then he spoke. "This door needs a second lock," he said. That window needs film. That beam needs a brace. Butcher, finally arriving in person, stared at him like he was watching a weird animal. "You seriously can't stop," Butcher said. The masked man didn't look at him. "I can," he said. "I choose not to." Huey almost laughed. It was the first time in 2 days he felt anything close to normal. Then the laptop chimed. Frenchie had finished digging deeper into the files. He called everyone over. The room got quiet. Frenchie pointed at a page that showed diagrams. It looked like air vents, filters, flowcharts. "It's not just a virus," Frenchie said. "They are planning how to spread it." MM's face tightened. "Through air," he said. Frenchie nodded. "Yes, air systems, buildings. It says mass exposure risk assessment." Starlight covered her mouth for a second, then lowered her hand like she was forcing herself to stay steady. Huey stared at the diagrams and felt sick. This is end-of-the-world stuff," Huey whispered. Butcher's eyes were bright. Too bright. "It's end-of-the-soup stuff," he corrected. The masked man turned toward him slowly. "No," he said. "It's end-of-people stuff." Butcher scoffed. "Soups aren't people," he snapped. Starlight's voice cut in, sharp. "Some of them are," she said. "And even if they're not, you don't get to kill everyone near them." Butcher threw his hands up. "So what? We just keep losing?" he said. "We just keep watching them tear folks apart?" The masked man stepped closer, not threatening, but present. "You want them to stop hurting people," he said. "So do I." Butcher stared at him. "Then stop standing in the way," he said. The masked man's voice stayed calm. "I'm standing in the way of you becoming the thing you hate," he said. Butcher's jaw flexed. MM took a step between them. "Enough," he said. "We're not doing this now." Butcher leaned around him. "You're scared of a choice," he said to the masked man. The masked man didn't blink. "I'm scared of what your choice does to everyone else," he said. The room went quiet again. Huey realized something in that silence. This wasn't just about Vought. This was about whether any of them still believed rules mattered. Frenchie cleared his throat. "There is another pattern," he said, trying to pull them back to the screen. "In the permits, in the construction." The masked man's head turned fast. "Show me," he said. Frenchie clicked to a list of contractors and addresses. The masked man studied it for only a few seconds before pointing. "Here," he said. "And here." MM frowned. "Those are different sites," he said. "Same reinforcement style," the masked man replied. "Same mistake." Huey blinked. "Mistake?" "The beams are overbuilt in the wrong direction," the masked man said. "It's not for safety. It's for containment. Like they're hiding tunnels or heavy doors." Frenchie stared. "You can tell that from permits?" "Yes," the masked man said. Butcher threw his hands up again. "Of course he can," he muttered. "Because he's Batman from Home Depot." Huey snorted once before he could stop himself. The masked man glanced at him. Huey froze, thinking he'd messed up. But the masked man just said, "I'm not Batman." Then he added, "And I don't shop at Home Depot." For a second, even Starlight looked like she might smile. Then the mood snapped back. The masked man tapped the address list again. "These sites connect," he said. "They make a path under the city, a route to move people and equipment without anyone seeing." MM's eyes narrowed. "To the woods," he said. The masked man nodded once. "We find the route," he said. "We find where they're keeping the viral work. We stop it before anyone uses it." Butcher's voice turned low. "And if we can use it first?" The masked man's gaze locked on him. Hard. "No," he said. Butcher's stare didn't break. Not yet. But something in his eyes promised Huey this wasn't over. 2 nights later, the masked man stood alone on a roof and watched a cracked building across the street. It had been damaged in a hero fight months ago. Vought called it a tragedy. They held a charity event. They sold shirts. But no one fixed the support column properly. The masked man had come here because he couldn't let it go. He crouched and measured the sag in the beam with his eyes. He didn't have a ruler. He didn't need one. He was still doing his job, even here, even when the world didn't deserve it. A quiet footstep came behind him. Starlight. She stood a few feet away, hood up, hair tucked in. She looked smaller without the stage lights. "You're really staying," she said. The masked man kept his eyes on the building. "For now," he said. Starlight swallowed. "Homelander is obsessed," she said. "He's searching every night. He's hurting people to find you." The masked man's voice stayed low. "He was hurting people before I got here," he said. Starlight stepped closer. "He's going to try to make you break your rule," she said. "He does that. He pushes until you become what he says you are." The masked man finally looked at her. "Then I don't become it," he said. Starlight's eyes softened. "I want to believe that's possible," she said. The masked man looked back at the cracked building. "It has to be," he said. In the distance, a siren wailed. The city kept bleeding, and somewhere under the streets, Vaught's hidden work kept growing. The masked man's jaw tightened. He had found the next path. Now he had to walk it. Days passed. Not calm days. Busy days. The boys stayed hidden. Vought pushed the story harder. Police cruisers showed up in places they didn't belong. Cameras appeared on corners that used to be dark. And the masked man started doing something nobody else thought to do. He started visiting the damage. Not the big scenes with news clips. The quiet damage. The buildings after hero rescues. The bridges that shook too much. The parking decks where the concrete had been patched fast and wrong. Huey followed him one afternoon, mostly because Huey didn't trust himself alone with his thoughts. They stood at the edge of a cracked sidewalk, where a bus stop leaned like it wanted to lie down. Huey looked at the masked man. "Why are we here?" he asked. The masked man crouched and ran a gloved finger over a line in the concrete. "This crack is new," he said. Huey blinked. "Okay." The masked man pointed at a metal plate bolted into the ground nearby. "Those bolts are too big," he said, "and too new." Huey stared. "So, someone fixed it?" "Someone hid something," the masked man replied. Huey stared longer, then rubbed his face. "You're tracking villains with construction," he said. The masked man stood. "Villains build things," he said. "They don't just punch. They make systems." Huey swallowed. "That's kind of scary." "It should be," the masked man said. They moved to the next site, then the next. By the end of the day, Huey had seen a pattern without even understanding it. Same contractor name, same style of reinforcement, same overbuilt in the wrong direction, as the masked man said. Huey didn't know what that meant, but he knew it meant someone was spending money to hide routes. Routes for people, routes for weapons, routes for something worse. Back at the safe house, Frenchie spread blueprints across a table. He had gotten them from a city archive with the masked man's help. Leaned over the papers, eyes narrowed. "These don't match what's on the street," said. The masked man pointed at a faint line under a row of buildings. "They drew the public plans," he said. "Then they drew the real plans under them." Huey stared. "There's a tunnel," he said. Frenchie nodded slowly. "Not one," he said. "Many." Kimiko tapped the line with her finger, tracing it like she was following a path out of a cage. Starlight looked up. "That goes near a Vote medical facility," she said. The masked man nodded. "And near a data center," he said. Butcher leaned in. eyes bright again. "And near a place where they might keep the soup virus," he said. The masked man's head turned sharply. "We don't call it that like it's a tool," he said. Butcher smirked. "What do you want to call it?" he asked. "The please stop murdering us juice?" Snapped. "Billy." Butcher raised both hands. All right, he said. "I'm just saying. We're close." The masked man looked at the tunnel line again. "This isn't a raid," he said. "This is an entry. Quiet." Frenchie nodded. "We need small team," he said. 3, maybe 4. The masked man glanced at Kimiko, then at Frenchie. "You two," he said. Frenchie blinked. "Me?" he asked, like he wanted it and feared it at the same time. "You can build," the masked man said. "You can improvise." Frenchie puffed up a little. "Yes," he said. "I improvise very well." Kimiko nodded once. "Simple." Huey raised his hand without thinking. "What about me?" he asked. The masked man looked at him. "You're loud," he said. Huey's face fell. "Oh." Then the masked man added, "But you're honest. Stay on comms. Keep the exit ready." Huey nodded, a weird mix of offended and proud. Butcher stepped forward. "And me?" he asked. The masked man's reply came clean. "No." Butcher's smile froze. "Excuse me?" "You don't want to stop the virus," the masked man said. "You want to own it." Butcher's eyes narrowed. "You don't know what I want." "I do," the masked man said. The room went tight. Starlight moved closer to Butcher, like she was ready to block him if she had to. Stared at Butcher, tired anger showing through. "He's right," said. Butcher looked around the room and realized, for once, nobody was backing him. He laughed once, short and ugly. "Fine," he said. "Go play spelunking. I'll be here." Huey didn't believe him for a second, and the masked man didn't either. But he didn't argue. He just pointed at the map. "Tonight," he said. The entrance was behind a condemned building that Vought had promised to revitalize for years. The front was boarded up. The back fence had a small gap like someone had planned it. Rain fell again, lighter this time, but steady. The masked man moved first, as always. Frenchie followed, carrying a bag that clinked with tools and small devices. Kimiko came last, silent, eyes scanning the dark. They reached a metal hatch half hidden under weeds and broken concrete. The masked man knelt and examined it. "New welds," he murmured. Frenchie peered over his shoulder. "How do you see these things?" he whispered. "I look," the masked man replied. He worked the latch. It gave after a moment, not because it was weak, but because it was built by someone who assumed no one would care. The hatch opened. Cold air breathed up at them. Metal steps descended into black. Frenchie swallowed. "This is the part where we meet the murder basement," he whispered. Kimiko looked at him and made a small hand sign like, "Yes." The masked man dropped in first. The tunnel was clean, not sewer clean, lab clean. Lights ran along the ceiling at even spaces. The floor was flat. The walls were reinforced with thick steel ribs like a spine. "This is expensive," Frenchie whispered. The masked man touched a support rib. "And overbuilt," he said, "for pressure, for containment." Frenchie's voice went smaller. "You keep saying containment?" The masked man didn't answer. He kept moving. They reached a door with a keypad. Frenchie crouched. "Let me," he whispered. He pulled out a small kit, clipped wires, and tapped a device against the pad. The pad blinked green. Frenchie's mouth opened in a proud grin. "I am." The masked man held up a hand. Footsteps. Ahead. Not rushing. Not searching. Patrolling. Frenchie's grin vanished. He pressed himself against the wall. Kimiko shifted her weight like a spring. The masked man moved into a shadowed corner near the doorframe. 2 guards rounded the corner. They wore black armor with vault patches. Their rifles were held ready, not lazy. The masked man stepped out behind the first guard and put him down with a quick choke. He lowered the body gently, like even enemies deserved not to die. Kimiko hit the second guard with a sharp strike to the jaw and caught him as he fell. Frenchie stared. "You two are terrifying," he whispered. They hid the bodies in an alcove. They opened the door, and the air inside smelled like bleach and something sour under it. Like fear had soaked into the walls. They moved through another hallway, then down a stairwell. The masked man paused halfway and looked up at the ceiling. Frenchie froze. "What?" "The stairs are reinforced," the masked man said. "Too much." Kimiko tilted her head. The masked man's voice went low. "Heavy doors," he said. "Or heavy things." They reached a landing. A sign was posted beside a thick steel door. "Authorized personnel only." Wood sublevel. Frenchie swallowed hard. "So it is real," he whispered. The masked man placed his palm on the door, feeling the vibration on the other side. "Quiet," he said. He opened it. Inside, the world turned colder. The lights were white and harsh. The hallways were wide enough to move big carts. The doors were thick. They passed a window and saw a room with restraints bolted to a chair. Frenchie's breath caught. "Oh," he whispered. Kimiko's hands curled into fists. The masked man didn't stop, but his pace changed. Faster, more focused. They reached a lab section. Glass walls showed equipment and racks of vials. Screens displayed charts and warnings. Frenchie stepped closer, eyes scanning labels. Then he went still. "This," he whispered. "This is it." The masked man moved beside him and read the label on a sealed case. "Vonley pathogen test sample." Huey's voice came through a small earpiece in the masked man's helmet, faint and shaky. "Guys," Huey said, "I'm seeing movement on street cams, VOT units, and I think Noir is out." The masked man's voice stayed steady. "Copy," he said softly. Frenchie looked at the vials like they were snakes. "They made it," Frenchie whispered. "They really made a sickness just for soups." Kimiko slammed her fist into the wall beside the case. The glass trembled. The masked man turned to her. "Not yet," he said. "We do this right." Frenchie nodded fast. "We need to destroy," he said. "But careful. If we break it wrong." The masked man already had small charges in his hands. Not big bombs. Small cutters. He placed them along the case hinges. Frenchie stared. "You came ready for everything," he whispered. "I came ready for what mattered," the masked man said. A sound echoed from down the hall. A door opening. A slow footstep. Then another. Kimiko's eyes snapped to the hallway. The masked man turned his head slightly, listening. He could tell the difference between guards and a predator. This was a predator. A shape appeared at the far end. Black Noir. Silent. Smooth. Like the hallway belonged to him. Behind Noir, 2 more figures moved in. Not regular guards. Bigger. Heavier. Wearing thicker gear. One carried a weapon that looked like it was built for stopping tanks. Frenchie's voice went thin. "They brought the special team," he whispered. The masked man's voice stayed calm. "Then we keep it tight," he said. Noir stopped in the center of the hall. He tilted his head, like he was curious. Then he pointed once, and the heavy team moved. Fast. The first one charged, slamming into the lab door like a battering ram. The masked man moved. He didn't trade strength. He traded angles. He slid under the charge, planted a device on the attacker's ankle, and yanked a cable. The attacker's foot snapped sideways. The man crashed to the floor. Not dead, but done for the moment. Kimiko launched herself at the second heavy unit. She hit hard and fast, fists like hammers. The heavy unit staggered but didn't fall. This one was built for impact. Frenchie pulled a small canister and tossed it down the hall. A thick foam burst across the floor, slick and sticky. The heavy unit slipped. Kimiko used the slip to climb him like a wall and slam her elbow into his throat. He dropped to a knee, choking. Noir moved then. He didn't rush. He flowed. He threw a knife. The masked man caught it by the handle in midair. Frenchie stared like his brain couldn't accept what he saw. The masked man flicked the knife into the wall, pinning a wire. Noir's eyes narrowed. He came in close, fast now, blades out. The masked man met him with empty hands and precision. Noir's blade slashed. The masked man twisted. Metal scraped armor. The masked man struck Noir's wrist, then elbow, then shoulder, breaking the chain of movement. Noir didn't grunt. He didn't speak. He just kept coming. Kimiko threw the heavy unit into the wall and turned to help. Noir pivoted and kicked her back. Kimiko hit the floor, rolled, and popped up again like pain didn't get a vote. The masked man spoke into his comm, voice tight, but calm. "Huey," he said, "we have company. Prepare diversion." Huey's voice was a panic whisper. "What kind?" "The kind that doesn't talk," the masked man replied. Frenchie shouted, "We must finish!" The masked man glanced at the case of vials. He made a choice. He slapped the charges into place, then tossed Frenchie a small device. "Trigger on my signal," he said. Frenchie nodded, hands shaking. Noir lunged again. The masked man stepped into the attack this time, grabbed Noir's arm, and slammed him into the glass wall hard enough to spiderweb it. Noir bounced off and came back. The masked man didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed, like he wished he had more time. Kimiko grabbed Noir from behind, locking his arms. Noir's body went tense. He headbutted her. Kimiko's nose cracked. She didn't let go. Frenchie yelled, "Now!" The masked man stared at the case, then at the hallway. If they waited longer, Noir would stop them. If they did it now, they might spill something they couldn't control. He made the only choice that matched his rule. He would not let this exist. He snapped, "Now!" Frenchie hit the trigger. The charges sliced through the hinges and seals in a clean line. The case didn't explode. It opened like a locked mouth being forced shut forever. Inside, a second set of sealed vials sat in foam trays. The masked man tossed a small canister into the open case. It wasn't a bomb. It was a neutralizer foam Frenchie had made from a recipe stolen off a lab for him and improved with a madman's care. Foam filled the case, smothering the samples. Frenchie shouted, "It should kill the virus!" Kimiko's eyes widened. "Should?" Frenchie shouted back. "Better than nothing." Noir broke free of Kimiko's grip and swung a blade toward the open case. The masked man caught Noir's arm mid-swing and twisted. A crack. Noir's knife clattered to the floor. Noir didn't scream. He just stared, silent rage. Then the heavy unit with the tank weapon raised it and fired. Not bullets. A shockwave. The blast hit the lab wall. Glass exploded inward. The masked man grabbed Frenchie and threw him behind a metal bench. Kimiko took the blast and slid across the floor, skin tearing, but she still got up. The hallway alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed. And over all of it, Huey's voice came through the comm like a lifeline. Guys," Huey said. "Bad news. Homelander just took off from the tower. Like, flying. Fast." Frenchie's face went white. "No," he whispered. The masked man's eyes hardened. "We leave," he said. Frenchie stared at the case. "But it's neutralized," the masked man said. "We have proof. We're done." Kimiko pointed at a second door on the far side of the lab, one marked with a simple symbol. Exit route. The masked man nodded. That, he said. They moved. Noir moved with them. He didn't care about the virus now. He cared about the mask. They hit the exit door. It opened into a narrower corridor with exposed pipes and a low ceiling. The masked man glanced up automatically. Frenchie, panting, whispered, Do not start talking about beams now." The masked man didn't answer, but his eyes still measured the supports. Kimiko ran ahead. Behind them, Noir's footsteps stayed close. The masked man pulled a smoke pellet and dropped it. The corridor filled. Noir pushed through like he could taste them. The masked man fired a line upward and yanked a pipe down. Water blasted out, turning the floor slick. Noir slid for a second. A second was enough. They reached a stairwell. Up. 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 Frenchie's lungs burned. Kimiko moved like she didn't need air. The masked man stayed between them and Noir the whole time. At the top, they hit a service door and shoved it open into the night. Rain slapped their faces. They burst into an alley behind a vote-owned building. Huey's voice cracked in their ears. "He's above you," Huey whispered. He's coming right now." The masked man looked up. The clouds split. Homelander hovered there, cape steady, rain boiling off his shoulders like the weather wasn't allowed to touch him. His eyes glowed, scanning. He saw the alley. He saw movement. And his mouth curved into a smile that did not belong on a human face. "Found you," he said, voice carrying down like it was coming from the sky itself. Frenchie froze like his body forgot how to move. Kimiko's hands rose, ready to fight even if it was hopeless. The masked man pushed both of them back into cover. He didn't look at Homelander like a god. He looked at him like a problem, a huge problem, but still a problem. Homelander dropped lower, slow on purpose. "You ruined my night," Homelander said. "Do you know how rare it is for me to have a bad night?" The masked man didn't answer. Homelander's eyes flicked to Frenchie, then Kimiko, then back to the mask. "You brought friends," Homelander said brightly. "How sweet." The masked man's voice stayed low. "They're not part of this," Homelander laughed. "Everything is part of this," he said. His eyes flashed red. The masked man threw a device upward without looking. It popped in midair and burst into a spray of reflective particles. Homelander's heat vision cut through the rain and scattered. The beam split, refracted, and burned a bright line across the brick wall instead of through a person. Homelander jerked back, surprised. For a fraction of a second, he couldn't see clean. The masked man used that fraction like it was gold. "Run," he said to Frenchie and Kimiko. They ran. The masked man sprinted the other way, toward the street, drawing Homelander's attention like a magnet. Homelander's eyes narrowed. "Oh," he said, amused. "You want to play?" He shot forward. The masked man vaulted a dumpster, landed on a fire escape and climbed. His armor protested. His ribs probably did too. He hit the roof. Homelander slammed into the wall below, cracking it like thin ice, then rose fast. The masked man didn't try to punch him. He fired a grapnel line into a nearby billboard frame and yanked. The billboard tore loose and swung. Not enough to hurt Homelander. Enough to block sight. Enough to buy one breath. The masked man dropped off the far side of the roof into a gap between buildings that led straight into the tunnel route he'd mapped. He landed hard, rolled, and disappeared into darkness. Homelander hovered above, furious now. He blasted the roof edge. Concrete exploded. But the mask was gone. Below, Frenchie and Kimiko met Huey at a hidden door that led into the safe route MM had prepared. Huey's face was soaked with rain and fear. "You got it?" he asked, voice shaking. Frenchie held up the bag with the copied files and a few photographs snapped in a hurry. "Yes," Frenchie breathed. "We got it." Kimiko grabbed Huey by the jacket and pulled him inside, as Homelander's voice echoed above, angry and loud. "Run all you want," Homelander shouted. "I will find you." The door shut. Darkness swallowed them. In the safe tunnel, the masked man caught up, breathing hard, shoulders squared anyway. Frenchie looked at him, eyes wide. "You made him miss," Frenchie whispered. "You made Homelander miss." The masked man's voice was flat. "He can't miss forever," he said. Huey stared at the mask and realized something scary and simple. Homelander was not used to people slipping out of his hands. Now he was. That meant the war had changed. And above them, in the rain, Homelander smiled like a kid promised a new toy. Somewhere else, far from the tunnel, Billy Butcher stood in a parked car with binoculars and a small cooler bag at his feet. He hadn't stayed behind. Of course he hadn't. He watched the alley. He watched the chaos. He watched the moment the team broke away. Then he looked down at his cooler bag and opened it. Inside was a small vial, clear liquid, a simple label. V only. Butcher's eyes gleamed. "Cheers," he murmured. And he closed the bag before the world could see what he had chosen. A week passed, then another. In this city, normal was just the quiet space between disasters. Huey learned that fast. He also learned something else. The masked man did not rest the way other people rested. Huey watched him in the new safe place. It was an old storage unit under a closed laundromat. It smelled like dust and old soap. The lights flickered sometimes, like they were nervous. The masked man walked the room again, like he hadn't already done it 10 times. He stopped at the main support post and put a hand on it. MM sighed. "Don't tell me." "It's bowed," the masked man said. "Yeah," MM replied. "So is my soul." "Keep going." Frenchie was on a ladder, taping a thin plastic film over a window. "You see?" Frenchie called down. "We do your safety things. We listen." The masked man looked up. "Your tape is crooked," he said. Frenchie froze. "It is art," Frenchie argued. "It will peel first," the masked man replied. Frenchie grumbled and fixed it. Huey sat on a folding chair and tried not to smile. It was the closest thing to a joke they'd had in days. Then the masked man turned and held out a small bundle of metal braces he had made from scrap. MM stared. "Where'd you even get those?" "Abandoned site," the masked man said. "No cameras. Bad supervision." Huey blinked. "You went to a construction site?" The masked man nodded, like that was the most normal thing in the world. "They waste materials," he said. "I don't." MM shook his head. "We got a vigilante engineer," he muttered. Frenchie called it out like a title. "The Bat of OSHA." The masked man didn't react, but Huey swore he heard a tiny exhale through the mask that sounded like mild annoyance. Or maybe it was a laugh he refused to admit. Starlight arrived late, in plain clothes, hood up. She looked tired. Not didn't sleep tired. Carrying a whole broken world tired. She set a burner phone on the table. "They're increasing patrols around the tower," she said. "They're doing random stops. They're grabbing people for interviews." MM frowned. "People connected to the woods?" Starlight nodded. "And people connected to you," she added, looking at Huey, and then MM. Huey's stomach tightened. "So it's getting worse." "It always gets worse before it gets better," Starlight said, but she didn't sound sure. The masked man didn't look up from the braces he was fitting to the support post. "What do they know?" he asked. Starlight hesitated. "They know you exist," she said. "They know you're not playing their game." "And Homelander?" She swallowed. "He's angry," she finished. The masked man clicked the last brace into place. "He stays angry," he said. Starlight looked at him hard. "Not like this," she replied. At night, The city looked like it was pretending to be fine. Lights, music, ads, smiling faces on screens. But under those screens, people walked faster. They looked over their shoulders more. They didn't trust the air. The masked man moved above them, roof to roof. He didn't enjoy it. He didn't hate it. He did it because the work didn't stop. He stopped a mugging in an alley without breaking a bone. He stopped a robbery at a corner store by cutting the lights and using a smoke pellet that made the thieves run into each other like panicked animals. Then he heard a sound that didn't belong. A deep creak. He froze and listened. It came from a tall apartment building nearby. One of those buildings that Vought saved last year during a staged rescue. They had put up banners. They had sold a story. They hadn't fixed the real damage. The masked man crossed the street in seconds, using shadows, using angles, staying off the main cameras. He reached the building's side and looked up. A corner support beam had a crack that had spread. Rainwater had gotten inside. Then cold air had done the rest. People were still living there. He could smell cooking oil from a window. He could hear a baby cry above. He didn't hesitate. He went in through the stairwell and took the steps 2 at a time, moving fast but quiet. He reached the cracked corner floor and found the source. A support column had been patched with cheap filler. Not steel, not real reinforcement. A lie in concrete form. He grabbed a maintenance cart, shoved it under the sagging beam, and jammed his braces into place. He used his weight and a lever bar to push the beam up just enough. His shoulders shook. The armor creaked. He did it anyway. A door opened down the hall. A man in a stained t-shirt stepped out, confused. "What the?" The masked man lifted a hand, palm out. "Get everyone out of this section," he said. "Now." The man stared at him like he was a ghost. "Who are you?" The masked man didn't answer. The building groaned again. The crack widened a hair. The man's eyes got big. He ran, shouting for his neighbors. The masked man stayed until he heard feet moving away, until he heard doors slamming, until he heard the stairwell fill with fast, scared steps. Then he backed off. He didn't wait for a full collapse. He didn't need the drama. He had done what mattered. As he left, he looked up at the wall and saw a poster taped crookedly near the elevator. A smiling hero. A Vought slogan. "Protecting you. Always." The masked man stared at the slogan for 1 second. Then he turned and walked away. Behind him, the building settled. It didn't fall. Not tonight. On a different night, in a different kind of place, Stan Edgar waited in a half-finished high-rise. The building was empty. It smelled like wet cement and metal. It was quiet in the way expensive plans are quiet. Edgar stood near a large window without glass, looking down at the city. 2 security men waited behind him, far enough to be respectful. The masked man arrived without a sound. Edgar didn't turn. He didn't jump. He spoke like he'd been talking to him the whole time. "You're hard to invite," Edgar said. The masked man stayed in shadow. "I didn't accept." Edgar gave a small nod. "No," he agreed. "But you came." The masked man's voice was flat. "Say what you want." Edgar finally turned. His face was calm, as always. "You're interfering with Vought assets," Edgar said. "You're breaking into facilities. You're damaging property." The masked man didn't deny it. "Your property includes people," he said. Edgar's eyes didn't change. "That's a dramatic way to describe a system," he replied. The masked man took 1 step closer. "I've seen your system." Edgar studied him the way someone studies a tool, not with hate, with calculation. "You're not on Compound Vi," Edgar said. "You're not a product." The masked man said nothing. Edgar continued, "That makes you rare." The masked man's voice stayed cold. "That makes me free." Edgar's mouth almost looked like it might smile. It didn't. It makes you unstable, Edgar corrected. For us? The masked man's hand hovered near his belt, not as a threat, but as a reminder. He controlled the distance. Edgar held up a folder. Here, Edgar said. Workshop access, materials, a safe location, a clean identity, resources you clearly don't have. The masked man didn't move toward it. You want to buy me, he said. Edgar's tone stayed even. I want to control risk, he replied. You could do meaningful work with proper support. The masked man's eyes narrowed. Meaningful work for you. Edgar didn't argue. Yes, he said simply. The honesty was almost worse. The masked man spoke in short beats. You built the woods. Edgar's gaze held steady. I built a company, he said. Companies do what they must to survive. The masked man's voice sharpened. That's the same line the worst people use. Edgar's eyes flicked once, like a minor irritation. And yet the world keeps running, he said. The masked man stepped into the edge of the light for the first time. His armor looked patched, real, used. No deal, he said. Edgar nodded, like he expected it. Then you should understand what happens next. The masked man didn't blink. Threat? Edgar corrected him. Forecast, he said. Homelander is escalating. He's turning this into a public obsession. That's bad for the company. It's bad for the city. It's bad for everyone. The masked man's voice was low. You can't control him. Edgar's pause was the closest thing he had to a confession. Not completely, he admitted. The masked man leaned forward slightly, then stopped trying to use him. Edgar's eyes hardened a fraction. He's already here, he said. He's already the face. We manage reality the best we can. The masked man said, Reality isn't a brand. Edgar looked at him for a long moment. Then he placed the folder on a metal beam. Take it or don't, Edgar said. But understand this. He stepped closer, voice still calm. If you expose the wrong thing the wrong way, Edgar said, you don't win. You create panic. You create chaos. And chaos is where Homelander becomes honest. The masked man stared at the folder and didn't touch it. I'm not here to win, he said. I'm here to stop the damage. Edgar nodded once, almost approving. Then you'll need a plan, Edgar said, because you can't outmuscle him. The masked man replied without hesitation. I'm not trying to. And then he was gone, leaving only cold air and Edgar's quiet breathing. Edgar looked at the empty space where the shadow had been. Neither am I, he said softly. Butcher had his own plan. He didn't call it a plan. He called it a fix. He sat alone in a parked car under a freeway. The city roared above him. Headlights passed like restless eyes. The cooler bag sat on the passenger seat. Inside, the vial waited. Butcher stared at it like it was a tiny sun, like it could burn the whole world clean. He remembered Robin. He remembered Becca. He remembered the way Soup smiled after doing something horrible, like it didn't count. He picked up the vial. His hand shook, but not from fear, from hunger. He leaned back and stared at the dark ceiling of the car. All it takes is one, he whispered. Then he laughed once, bitter. One little vial, and the gods bleed. He set it back in the bag and zipped it shut. He didn't tell anyone. Not Huey. Not MM. Not Frenchie. Not even Starlight. Because if he told them, they would try to stop him. And he was done being stopped. The clash finally happened in the storage unit safe house. Not with fists. Not at first. With a bag. Huey came back from a supply run and found Butcher standing at the table with the cooler bag open. MM was there, face stiff. Starlight's eyes were wide, furious. Frenchie looked like he wanted to throw up. The masked man stood across from Butcher, still as stone. Huey walked in and froze. What is that? Butcher didn't look at him. He looked at the masked man. It's our way out, Butcher said. The masked man's voice was low. Put it away. Butcher smiled. No. Starlight stepped forward. Billy, this is insane. Butcher snapped his head toward her. You don't get to talk, he said. You lived in the tower. You watched what they did. Starlight's face tightened. And that's why I know this is wrong, she shot back. Pointed at the bag. Where did you even get that? Butcher shrugged. Trade secret. Frenchie's voice cracked. You stole it, he whispered. You stole it from the lab. Butcher didn't deny it. Yeah, he said. And now we use it. Huey's throat went dry. Use it? How? Butcher turned his head slightly, like he was explaining something simple. Ventilation, he said. One good building. One good moment. 7 in one place. Then, no more 7. Huey felt sick. There would be people, he whispered. Butcher waved him off. There's always people, he said. That's the point. They hide behind people. The masked man took one slow step closer. Do it, he said. And you become Vought. Butcher's eyes flashed. No, he snarled. I become the cure. The masked man's reply was immediate. Cures don't need mass graves. Butcher's hand went to a gun at his belt. Reflex. Grabbed his wrist. Don't, warned. Butcher jerked away. Let go, he snapped. Starlight stood between them, voice shaking with anger. Billy, if you do this, you don't just kill monsters, she said. You kill anyone who happens to be near them. You kill kids. You kill nurses. You kill people who never chose any of this. Butcher's face twitched. For a second, something human tried to surface. Then it drowned. They chose the world they live in, he said. The masked man's voice stayed flat, but it carried weight. You're lying to yourself, he said. Butcher's smile returned, cold. And you're naive, he said. You think your rule makes you better. It makes me responsible, the masked man replied. Butcher leaned in. You're not even from here, he hissed. This isn't your mess. The masked man didn't flinch. I'm here, he said. So it is my mess now. The room tightened. Huey realized Butcher wasn't going to back down, and he realized the masked man wasn't either. Butcher did something sudden. He shoved the cooler bag under his coat and stepped toward the door. Move, he said. Blocked him. You're not leaving with that. Butcher's eyes hardened. Try me. The masked man moved like a shadow. He reached Butcher in 2 steps and grabbed the strap of the bag. Butcher twisted, fast, and slammed his elbow into the masked man's cracked chest plate. Pain flashed. The masked man's grip loosened for half a second. Butcher used that half second like he lived on them. He yanked free, kicked the door open, and bolted into the alley. Billy! Huey shouted. Swore and ran after him. Starlight started to follow. The masked man stopped her with a hand. Not you, he said. Starlight stared. Why? Because if you go, he said, you'll be seen. And then they'll use you as the excuse. Starlight's jaw clenched, but she stayed. The masked man looked at Huey. Get Frenchie moving, he said. Get the files ready. If he releases it, we need the truth out fast enough that it can't be buried. Huey's voice shook. Where is he going? The masked man's eyes narrowed. Vought Tower, he said. Vought announced a public community safety hearing 3 days later. It was a joke, a show, a stage. Victoria Newman sat at the front like a politician who cared. Vought executives sat behind her. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters leaned forward, hungry. Homelander sat in the first row, smiling for every lens. People in the audience held signs. Some said, "Save us." Some said, trust Vought. Some said, heroes are lies. Outside, police blocked streets and drones hovered. Inside, the air smelled like expensive perfume and fear. Starlight stood near the back in plain clothes. Hidden among staff, her earpiece crackled. Huey's voice came soft. "You sure you're okay?" Starlight whispered back. "No." Then she added, "But I'm here." On a rooftop across the street, the masked man watched through binoculars. He didn't need to ask what it was. It was bait. They wanted him to show up. They wanted him on camera. They wanted Homelander to catch the terrorist like a fairy tale. The masked man didn't give them what they wanted. He gave them what they needed. A plan. Frenchie and Kimiko were in a service van 2 blocks away. MM was on a side street with a stolen badge and a look on his face, like he was ready to punch the world. Huey was at a laptop in a safe room, fingers hovering over a button that would push the Woods files to every corner of the internet. "On your signal," Huey whispered. The masked man's voice came through the comm, calm. "Not yet." He moved. He didn't go through the front. He never went through the front. He went down, into the route he had mapped, through the hidden tunnels under the city. Vought's secret spine. He reached a maintenance hatch under the hearing building and popped it open. He emerged behind a wall panel in a staff corridor. He could hear Homelander's voice through the speakers in the hearing room. Warm, kind, fake. "We just want everyone to feel safe," Homelander said, and the audience clapped like they were trained. The masked man moved down the corridor, keeping to blind spots. Then he stopped, because he heard a familiar sound. A zipper. A cooler bag. He turned and saw Butcher at the end of the hall, hunched by a vent access panel. Butcher looked up and grinned like he'd been waiting. "Thought you'd find me," Butcher said. The masked man stepped closer, careful. "Put it down," he said. Butcher shook his head. "Not today," he replied. "Today, we fix it." The masked man's eyes flicked to the vent panel. "You open that," he said, "and you can't close it again." Butcher's grin widened. "That's kind of the point." The masked man spoke in a hard, controlled voice. "There are people in there," he said. "Not just soups." Butcher's eyes flashed. "Collateral," he snapped. "You keep saying that like it's a magic word." The masked man stepped forward again. "It's not a word," he said. "It's a body." Butcher's jaw tightened. "Move," he warned. The masked man didn't. Butcher pulled his gun. The masked man didn't flinch. "I won't let you do this," the masked man said. Butcher's voice went low. "Then you'll have to stop me." The masked man nodded once. "Okay," he said. He moved. Fast. He didn't try to disarm the gun first. He went for the bag. Butcher fired. The shot hit the wall near the masked man's shoulder, showering dust. The masked man slammed into Butcher and drove him away from the vent panel. They hit the floor hard. Butcher punched at the cracked chest plate again, aiming for pain. The masked man grabbed Butcher's wrist and twisted. The gun clattered away. Butcher snarled and headbutted him. Stars flashed behind the mask. The masked man didn't let go. He shoved Butcher back, grabbed the cooler bag, and ripped it open. Butcher lunged for it. The masked man yanked the vial out. Tiny. Clear. Deadly. Butcher's eyes locked on it like a starving man watching food. "Give it," Butcher hissed. The masked man looked at the vial. Then he looked at Butcher. Then he crushed it between 2 hard plates in his glove that clicked out like a tool. The glass shattered inside the plates. Foam sprayed instantly, a neutralizer Frenchie had made, and the masked man had insisted on carrying. It flooded over the broken vial and smothered it. Butcher froze. For 1 full second, he didn't move. Then his face twisted. "You," he choked. "You just threw away our only chance." The masked man's voice stayed calm. "I threw away mass murder," he said. Butcher's eyes burned. "You don't get it," he snarled. "You don't live with what they did." The masked man's reply hit like a hammer. "I live with what people do," he said. "Every night. In every world." Butcher shoved him hard. "You're a joke," he spat. "A rule in a world that eats rules." The masked man started to answer. But then the air changed. Warmth, pressure. A sound like a cape cutting through air. A shadow fell over the corridor. Homelander hovered at the far end, just inside the staff door, smiling like Christmas morning. "Well," Homelander said, "look at this." Butcher's face went pale for half a second, then turned sharp again. Homelander's eyes flicked to the crushed vial foam on the floor. He didn't know what it was. He didn't care. His eyes locked on the mask. "You came to my little meeting," Homelander said. "I'm honored." The masked man turned fully to face him, placing himself between Homelander and Butcher without thinking. Butcher stared at him like he couldn't believe it. Homelander tilted his head. "Still playing hero," he said, amused. "Even for him." The masked man's voice was low. "This ends with me leaving," he said. "And you not hurting anyone in that room." Homelander laughed softly. "Oh, buddy," he said. "You don't get to set terms." His eyes glowed red. The masked man raised a device and threw it. It burst into reflective particles, the same trick as before. Homelander's heat vision fired and scattered. The beams split across the corridor, slicing lights, burning wall panels, igniting a stack of paper folders. Homelander jerked back, annoyed. The masked man used the moment and grabbed Butcher by the coat. "Move!" he said. Butcher yanked free. "I'm not running," he snarled. "You are," the masked man said, and shoved him toward a service stairwell. Butcher stumbled. Furious. Homelander flew forward like a missile. The masked man didn't wait to be hit. He vaulted sideways into the hearing room service entrance and slammed the door shut behind him. Now the fight wasn't hidden. Now the cameras could see the chaos. The hearing room went silent as the door shook. Newman's voice snapped into the mic. "What is—" Homelander's voice cut through, loud and cheerful. "Just a little security issue." He turned toward the crowd, smile perfect. "Everyone stay calm," he said, and the fear in the room rose like a wave. Starlight's eyes widened. She saw the angle. She understood what Homelander wanted. A show. A clean kill. A lesson. The masked man stepped out into the side aisle of the hearing room, staying near the wall. Some people screamed. Some pointed. Phones rose like a field of little eyes. Newman stared at him with a calm face that didn't match the tension in her hands. Homelander floated into the room behind him, slow and proud. "There he is," Homelander said into the mic. "The terrorist." The word landed on the crowd like a stamp. The masked man looked at the phones, the cameras, the live stream. He didn't love it, but he could use it. He spoke into his calm, voice tight. "Huey," he said. "Now." Huey's breath hit the mic. "You sure?" "Now," the masked man repeated. Huey hit the button. At first, nothing changed. Then every screen in the hearing room flickered. The big display behind Newman glitched. The Vought logo vanished. A document appeared. A list of names. A Woods intake log. Then another screen. And another. Video clips played. Clean hallways. Restraint chairs. People behind glass. Lab charts labeled V only. The room erupted. "What is that?" someone shouted. "Oh my God!" someone screamed. Newman's eyes widened, but she recovered fast. "This is clearly—" But the masked man's plan wasn't one screen. It was all of them. Huey had pushed the files everywhere at once, social feeds, news sites, backups, mirrors, copies on copies. Vought couldn't unplug the whole internet. Homelander's smile didn't move at first. Then it cracked. He turned his head slowly, staring at the screens like they had insulted him personally. His eyes glowed red again. "Turn that off," he said, not into a mic, but into the air like the world owed him obedience. A Vought tech scrambled and fumbled. Nothing turned off, because the feed wasn't coming from Vought anymore. It was coming from everywhere. The masked man stayed near the wall, watching the crowd. People didn't look worshipful now. They looked scared, but they also looked angry. That anger was dangerous. It could turn into panic. Or it could turn into change. Homelander floated a little higher, breathing faster. "You did this," he said to the masked man. The masked man's voice was steady. "You did it," he replied. "I just showed it." Homelander's face tightened. "I'm going to rip your mask off," he said. "Right here. Let them see what you are." He flew forward. Fast. The masked man threw a smoke pellet at the floor. Thick smoke exploded upward. Homelander blasted heat vision through it anyway, carving a clean line in the marble floor. People screamed and ran. The hearing room turned into a stampede. Starlight moved instantly, not as a celebrity, but as a rescuer. She pushed people toward exits. She caught a falling woman. She shouted directions. The masked man moved too, but not toward Homelander, toward the crowd. He shoved a fallen chair out of the way. He yanked open an emergency door. He guided people into the hall with short, sharp commands. "Go. Keep moving. Don't look back." Homelander saw it, and that made him angrier, because even now, the masked man wasn't playing the right game. Homelander slammed into the wall near him, cracking concrete and showering dust. The masked man staggered but stayed upright. Homelander grabbed him by the cape and yanked him close. The mask was inches from Homelander's face. "You think you're better than me," Homelander hissed. The masked man's voice came out strained but clear. "I think you're dangerous," he said. Homelander's eyes flared. He was about to do it, about to tear the mask. Starlight saw and shouted, "Homelander!" Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Homelander glanced at her, and in that glance, the masked man did something simple and smart. He lifted a phone. Not his phone. A staff phone he had picked up earlier. It was live streaming. He held it up so Homelander could see the red live dot. Homelander froze for a fraction of a second. He hated cameras when they weren't his cameras. He hated being seen in the wrong light. The masked man didn't speak. He didn't need to. The message was clear. "If you kill me on camera, you don't look like a hero. You look like what you are." Homelander's smile twitched back into place like a muscle he forced to obey. "You're clever," he said softly. "That's cute." Then he threw the masked man across the room anyway. The masked man smashed into a table. Wood splintered. His armor scraped. Pain burned. But he was alive. Homelander floated down after him, breathing heavy. He wanted to go further. But the room was full of screaming people and live feeds and evidence on every screen. It was messy. Homelander hated messy. Black Noir appeared at the edge of the smoke, silent as ever, stepping toward the masked man. Kimiko burst in from the side corridor and met Noir head-on. No words, just impact. They collided and rolled into the aisle, a blur of blades and fists and bone. Frenchie appeared behind Kimiko, tossing a canister that burst into sticky foam under Noir's feet. Noir slid. Kimiko slammed him into a chair and pinned him long enough to breathe. Grabbed Huey through an earpiece line, shouting from wherever he was. "We got cops moving in! We need out!" The masked man pushed himself up. He looked at Homelander. Homelander looked back, eyes bright with rage and thrill. "You can't hide forever," Homelander said. The masked man's voice was low. "I'm not hiding," he said. "I'm working." He threw another burst of reflective dust and smoke, not to win, but to break line of sight. Then he moved. He grabbed Frenchie's shoulder and pointed. "Tunnel," he said. Frenchie nodded like he'd been waiting for that word. Kimiko released Noir and sprinted with them. Noir rose silently behind, but a collapsing row of chairs and foam slowed him enough. Starlight stayed behind for one more second, helping an older man up from the floor. Her eyes met the masked man's through the smoke, a silent question. "Are you leaving?" The masked man gave a small nod. "Not goodbye. Just keep going." Then he vanished into the corridor and into the tunnel spine beneath the city. Homelander hovered in the broken hearing room, surrounded by panic, evidence, and cameras. He could chase. He could kill. He could do what he always did. But now the world was watching the wrong part of the story. The part Vought couldn't polish fast enough. Homelander's face twisted. He screamed, a raw, furious sound. Then he forced a smile again as he turned to the nearest camera. "Everyone is safe," he said, voice shaking with anger under the words. "Everything is under control." But the camera didn't believe him, and neither did the crowd. After, the city didn't suddenly become good. It became loud. Protests formed in the rain. People shouted Vought lies back at them. Some people defended Vought like it was religion. Vought spokespeople called the footage fake, then edited, then taken out of context. Stan Edgar sat in his office and watched it all unfold without changing expression. His assistant said, "We can still contain this." Edgar stared at the screen showing Wood's files mirrored on 1,000 sites. "No," he said quietly. "Not contained." He paused, then added, "Managed?" The assistant swallowed. "Homelander is furious." Edgar's eyes didn't move. "Homelander is always furious," he said. "Now he's furious in public." He leaned back. "This is the cost," he murmured. In the tunnel under the city, the masked man stopped. Not because he was safe, because he needed one breath. Huey's voice crackled in his ear. "You did it," Huey whispered. "People saw it. Like, they really saw it." The masked man didn't celebrate. "They saw a piece," he said. "Pieces don't stop wars." "But it's something," Huey insisted. The masked man looked down at the tunnel wall. A crack ran through the concrete. He pulled a small wedge from his belt and jammed it in. Huey blinked, even though the masked man couldn't see him. "Are you fixing the tunnel?" "It's spreading," the masked man said. Huey nearly laughed. "Dude." The masked man didn't answer. He just kept working. Appeared from a side passage, limping. Frenchie followed, soaked and shaking. Kimiko's knuckles were split, but she stood tall. Starlight wasn't with them. Huey felt that absence like a bruise. The masked man looked at the team, then at the darkness behind them. "Where's Butcher?" he asked. MM's face tightened. "Gone," he said. "He split before the hearing." Frenchie swallowed. "He is angry." The masked man nodded once. He already knew. Huey asked softly, "Is he going to try again?" The masked man didn't lie. "Yes," he said. Rubbed his face. "So what now?" he asked. The masked man looked toward the tunnel exit that led back into the city. He spoke like he was setting a beam in place. "Now," he said, "we keep pressure. We protect civilians. We gather more proof. We stop the worst options." Frenchie frowned. "And Homelander?" The masked man's voice stayed calm. "We don't beat him," he said. "We limit him." let out a tired laugh. "That's a hell of a goal." The masked man turned his head slightly toward Huey's voice line. "Huey," he said, "you did good." Huey blinked hard. "Thanks," he whispered. Then Starlight's voice came through a different line, faint but clear. "I'm okay," she said. Huey's shoulders sagged with relief. Starlight continued. "They're watching me. But the footage is everywhere. They can't unsee it." The masked man paused. Then he said, "Be careful." Starlight's voice softened. "You too," she replied. The line clicked off. For a moment, the tunnel was quiet except for distant city noise and dripping water. Frenchie looked at the masked man and asked the question Huey had been afraid to ask. "What is your name?" Frenchie said. "If we are to trust, we need something." MM nodded. "We don't need your whole life," he said. "Just a name." The masked man didn't move. Then he reached up slowly and pulled the mask back just enough for them to see his face in the dim light. Not for drama, for honesty. Huey's breath caught. He wasn't older than Huey expected. He looked tired, bruised, human. His eyes were steady. "My name is Bruce," he said. Frenchie blinked. "Bruce." MM frowned. "Bruce what?" Bruce hesitated. Then he answered, like it was a fact he didn't enjoy. "Wayne," he said. Huey stared. "Wayne? Like Rich Wayne?" Bruce's mouth tightened. "Not in my world," he said. "Not anymore." MM studied him and nodded once, slow. "All right, Bruce," MM said. "Now, we can yell at you properly." Frenchie exhaled, almost relieved. "Bruce Wayne," he repeated. "It sounds like a man who gets punched a lot." Bruce pulled the mask back into place. "Usually," he said. Kimiko watched him for a second, then gave a small nod. Not approval. Recognition. A fighter. A survivor. Someone who didn't quit. Huey felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not because everything was fixed, because for the first time in a long time, it felt like something had shifted, like the world had been forced to blink. The next week, the city tried to go back to sleep. It couldn't. People talked about the woods and grocery lines. People argued on buses. People whispered in stairwells. Vought put out new ads, bigger smiles, bigger flags, bigger promises. But now, every promise sounded like a question. And somewhere in the shadows, Bruce kept moving. Not as a celebrity, not as a brand, as a problem. A quiet, steady problem. Later, on a night when the rain finally stopped, Bruce stood alone in a half-empty building he had been watching for days. It was a low-income apartment tower, a place Vought had ignored because it didn't shine on camera. The support beam in the basement was cracked. It would fail in a month, maybe sooner. He had brought braces, bolts, a jack tool. He worked by flashlight. Above him, he could hear people laughing softly in their homes. A TV show playing. Someone arguing over dishes. Normal life. Fragile life. He tightened the last bolt and tested the brace. Good. He sat back against the wall for one moment, breathing slow. In his pocket, a small device buzzed. A message from Huey. "Protests downtown. Vought got nervous. Cops roughing people up." Bruce stared at the screen. Then another message, this one from Starlight. "Homelander hasn't shown his face in public today. That scares me more." Bruce stared at that one longer. He replied with one short line. "Stay close to exits." He put the device away and looked up at the ceiling. He couldn't see the sky from here, but he could feel the weight of the city above him. In this world, gods flew over streets. Corporations wrote the news. Monsters wore capes. And still, beams cracked. Buildings failed. People got hurt in quiet ways nobody filmed. Bruce stood. He turned off the flashlight. In the dark, his eyes adjusted. He walked up the basement stairs and paused by the front door. Outside, the streetlight flickered. Someone had drawn a symbol on the brick wall across the street with cheap spray paint. Not a Vought logo, not a flag, a rough bat shape. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't clean. It looked like it had been drawn by a kid with shaking hands. Bruce stared at it for a long moment. Then he stepped out into the night. Not because the city loved him, because the city needed something that didn't lie. And somewhere far away, in another dark place, Billy Butcher watched the same news feeds with a face like stone. The virus was gone, but his war wasn't. He didn't need a vial to hate. He only needed time. Bruce didn't know where Butcher was. Homelander didn't know where Bruce was. Vought didn't know what truth would break next. That was the new shape of the city. A city that kept moving. A city that kept cracking. A city that, for the first time in a long time, had something holding the line.